All right. So there are three marriage regimes in our country. The first being in community of property, the most commonly recognized. Second being out of community of property with the accrual. And the third being out of community of property without the accrual. So in community of property, how I would explain it is basically the assets that you have before and during the marriage and the liabilities. So your debts that you have, everything that you owe and everything that you own before and during the marriage, you pool together as spouses. And upon dissolution of that marriage by death or divorce, then you divide it equally. It is divided equally. Okay. So the risks there are obviously if during the course of the marriage, for example, you marry a successful businessman, something happens along the way, he incurs a lot of debt, you as the wife are then at risk for paying that debt back. Oftentimes we see cases where during a long marriage, the husband, for example, finds himself with an extramarital child born during that marriage. And for example, he will not be paying maintenance. The mother of that extramarital child approaches the maintenance court, and then the maintenance court makes a maintenance order against the husband. But because he is married in community of property, it affects the joint estate. So essentially, you as the wife who did not partake in the extramarital activities, you are then liable if he is unable to fulfill the debt. Okay, because there's one pot.
So out of my salary, I would be required to pay for...
If he is unable
Yes.
to. So if something happens to him...
And if you try and
then
go and get
yes.
divorced now, because now you're really upset with him,
He gets to take...
there's still a claim against in the divorce, you could still be liable for his debts. I mean, this is what
Yes.
people don't understand when they
Yes.
get into these marriages.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another thing just to add there, Maya, and we've spoken about this before, that even if there's no divorce, let's say your partner goes under debt review, by virtue of being married in community of property, you yourself are under debt review.
And this is the default marriage in South Africa.
It
So if
is.
you don't do what Mapolo and I did and went and signed an antinuptial contract, you are married in community of property, including customary marriage.
So if you don't sign an antenuptial contract before lobola negotiations are concluded, so I would often advise clients or parties to a customary marriage to sign the antenuptial contract even before the uncles go and negotiate. Okay? Sometimes that is not possible. So then I would advise parties in that customary marriage to make sure that they sign the antenuptial contract before the lobola negotiations are concluded, because sometimes there's more than one. So oftentimes we find there's the first meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting. In other cases, some families are able to resolve the lobola negotiations in one day. And I think that's where my advice about parties signing the antenuptial contract before the finalization comes in. Because once the lobola negotiations have been finalized and the customary marriage is celebrated, you are then married in community of property if you have not signed an antenuptial contract. And if you want to change that, it is a costly and time-consuming court process that you'd need to go through.
But what if someone says, okay, well, we did the meetings, we concluded lobola negotiations, we didn't sign this thing. Well, now I know from Lerato that I'm married in community of property, but I have not gone to Home Affairs to sign. And someone can say, well, do I have room right now to go and sign an antenuptial contract?
Before registering it with Home
Yeah.
Affairs.
So remember, registering it in terms of a customary marriage, I'm not speaking to the other two marriages. Registering your marriage, your customary marriage, does not mean that that concludes the marriage. The marriage is concluded before you go to Home Affairs. Home Affairs is just rubber stamping it, because you don't need to register a customary marriage for it to be valid in our country. So if somebody wants to try and attempt to do an antenuptial contract between lobola being concluded and celebrations having been partaken in, and then going to Home Affairs, you're still late. You're still married in community of property.